Palestinian struggle of apartheid, colonization, genocide, and ethnic cleansing. We stand as South Africans who have had a history of apartheid and colonization, and we say that we are with you in this struggle. The Palestinian cause is something that is intersectional. We cannot advocate for the freedom of Palestinians without being against all forms of racism, gender-based violence, homophobia, and all other forms of oppression. On behalf of the Wits PSC, I'd like to welcome each and every one of you for making the time to attend this vigil. And I'm inspired by the support we see today. Forward to the struggle for a free Palestine. Okay. Our first speaker is Michaela Burani from the Wits PSC.
Okay. This week we commemorated Nakba Day. For those of you that don't know, Nakba Day marks the year of 1948. 1948 is symbolic for two reasons. Firstly, 1948 was the year in which apartheid was officially implemented in South Africa. But it was also the year in which 700,000 Palestinians were dispossessed from their homeland. From 1948 to this day, the Palestinian people who were expelled are still prevented from returning to their homes and their properties. By now, most of you should be aware of the fact that Israel is undeniably a racist, violent, and brutal regime. In the year of 2021, we are still witnessing countless horrifying reminders of the heinous crimes that Israel is relentlessly committing against the Palestinian people. The people have reclaimed the narrative by bombarding our social media pages with reminders of this regime. Reminders that are so explicit that even people who have previously hidden behind their neutrality, i.e. the people that say it's a complicated situation, are being forced to reconsider their position. And so, undoubtedly, we the people who are not even directly the victims of apartheid Israel are all experiencing deep feelings of hurt, concern, grief, and what feels like an uncontrollable feeling of helplessness and despair. But despite what may seem like an unstoppable force, despite the despicable violence pursued by the Israeli regime, despite how daunting it may seem to overthrow one of the most resourced oppressive regimes, in spite of all of that, I want us to consider the ever-growing might of Sumud. Sumud, an Arabic term used by the Palestinian people in their resistance against apartheid Israel. Sumud meaning steadfastness or steadfast perseverance. And one thing we have all witnessed this week through the unfolding and ever-growing local and global solidarity is the very essence of Sumud. The idea that the discipline of holding on to hope greatly overpowers the trap of being incarcerated by despair and hopelessness. Sumud is a beautiful reminder of the power of the people. It assures us that the colonial subjugation of Palestinian people is not permanent. And although we cannot predict the future, we can draw on our very own history, a history that assures us that the people can and will overcome. I read something yesterday that has not left my mind since. Palestinians teach me how to dream. I do not say this to romanticize oppression, and I am not naive to believe that the struggle towards freedom will be an easy one. Rather, this is a gentle reminder that the spirit of the people, from Colombia to Palestine, cannot be colonized or controlled. Oppressors have always monopolized on our pain and tragedy because it can be so debilitating that it prevents us from sinking further. Most times, we are so exhausted that we cave in. We accept the reality we have because we don't allow ourselves to think about a life beyond pain and devastation. And so we can't begin to work towards our liberation because we fail to even envision it. But we all deserve a life, and Palestinians deserve a life beyond pain and destruction. We deserve to envision a better world that values all human life. We must allow ourselves to dream of this world, and then we must build it. We owe it to ourselves who are each battling our own struggles, and we owe it to each other. And we owe it to all the oppressed people of the world. Our dreaming must always extend beyond our homes, borders, and oceans. And then perhaps this, imagining, dreaming, believing in a new life is a radical act in itself. A luta continua, comrades. From the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea, Palestine will be free.
Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free.
So we're just gonna get another speaker ready. Thank you, Michaela, for that incredible speech. We will always remember Sumud in our struggle for a free Palestine. Our next speaker is from the Palestinian Embassy, the counselor of the Palestinian Embassy in South Africa.
Just like for me. Good evening, dear comrades. I wish to take this opportunity to thank all the students here and the organizer for this event, for this admirable act of compassion to show commitment in upholding South Africa's strong value and principles. We call upon all the countries that are running behind racist Israel to learn from this principle of solidarity and support with all the blessed people. Allow me on this occasion to extend to you all a greeting from the Palestinian people and leadership and our ambassador. To thank you to give me this opportunity on behalf of the ambassador of the state of Palestine once ago to draw your attention to
Speak a bit louder because they can't hear what
uh, to thank you to give me this opportunity on behalf of the ambassador to once again draw your attention to the plight of your brother and sister in the in the occupied state of Palestine who still suffering under the Israeli barbaric military occupation. Comrades, we express our pride to our people, especially in the occupied of Jerusalem, who sent message of resilience, challenge, and courage in defense of the holy city and Al-Aqsa Mosque, and rejecting the policy of displacement that taken place in Sheikh Jarrah and faced of barbaric attack committed by the occupation forces and terrorist settler. The displacement of Jerusalem from their homes and home in Sheikh Jarrah, Al Bustan, and Batn al Hawa in Salwan, Wadi al Joz, Walaja, and Columbia Airport, and the massacres in Gaza Strip are war crimes according to the Fourth Geneva Convention. And it's also crimes against humanity in accordance with the principle and of the international law and all the UN resolution, especially the Security Council resolution number 234. Dear comrades, Gaza still under ongoing Israeli barbaric aggression. Total number of murders rose than to 212, including 58 children, 33 women. Number of injured is more than 1,500, and hundreds of residential towers, homes, private, public properties stuck down to the ground. At the West Bank also, we see the arrest policy killing people. We have more than 100 people killed and injured. The Israeli human rights organization B'Tselem issued a report this year. Its name a regime of Jewish supremacy from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea. This is apartheid. The report confirmed that Israel is apartheid state not only in West Bank and Gaza Strip, but in all the historical Palestinian land, and not against our people, but against their citizens. You can now imagine the magnitude of the suffering of Palestinians from the discrimination, including the apartheid, the medical apartheid. Dear comrades, you are real student. We believe that you have important role you can do to support our struggle. We hope your efforts to stop all the relation with the Israeli university between some university here in South Africa. This is your rules to cut all this relation with the apartheid university. Also, we believe that the international community are urgently asked to take a serious and a quick move to stop Israeli aggression and its war crimes, to also impose sanctions on Israel, including boycotting the settlement, as well as all the country which their citizens hold Israeli nationality must be prevented from joining the Israeli army. Also, Israel should be face the international arms embargo. The Israel war criminal must be prosecuted to ICC. Thank you.
Thank you to the counselor of the embassy in Palestine. It is so important that we don't remain passive and we stay on this cause, fighting with boycotts, and we don't lose the struggle of the people of Palestine. Our next speaker will be the chair of the Youth Young Communist League from Wits, Lwazin Tompela.
Amandla, awethu, Matla, Aruna, Manda, Aina, comrades, friends, compatriots, and all protocols observed. I'm not sure if you know this song, but I'm going to start off with a song. Tina Sizwe. Ela tatwa Mabauyege Amanda awethu done with Israel apartheid down, done with the occupation of West Bank town, done with the blockade of Gaza town. Amanda awethu Mata Aruna. Thank you for everyone who was able to come here today. I'll be very short. So, as we all know, comrades, Uguti, not so long ago, the people of South Africa were experiencing the exact same thing that the people of Palestine are going through right now. And in fact, the people of Palestine have been suffering longer than we had suffered, comrades. Now, comrades, I want to be very clear on what I'm going to say now. The Wits YCL is in support of the Palestine Liberation Organization and anyone who seeks to liberate the people of Palestine. I also want to say, comrades, I do not want to mince my words since I'm speaking here today. When South Africa was going through a very grave period called apartheid, the current government could not call it colonialism, they could not call it slavery or any other form because it was no longer fashionable. They called it a period of separate development. They used all sorts of funny names and cute names so that they can tell the international community that no, we are living in peace here. It's just that our people, white people, let me not mince my words, white people and black people cannot live together because we have different cultures, traditions, and so on and so forth. Now, what we're seeing today in Palestine, they're not calling it colonialism again. The Israel state is calling it other names. They are calling it defending themselves. They say that no, we are developing separately. They say we want to self-determine. So, if you say South Africa's regime was unlawful, was inhumane, and was immoral, then you cannot say that the Israel regime is not immoral, it's not humane, and it's okay. If you call yourself an activist today and someone who fights for the rights of all individuals of South Africa, then you cannot say those in Palestine, those in Zimbabwe, those in Mozambique, and all the black people and everyone who's oppressed, you do not fight for them. Because during apartheid, the international community was a very potent weapon in defeating it. So now us, as the international community, we need to stand up and fight for the right thing. We need to stand up and fight for what's right so that tomorrow our children do not ask us that, what did you do? History will judge us very harshly if we keep quiet and do nothing about this. Now, I want to say to those who do not attend today for their own reasons, I will not state their reasons. When you look back in 50 years from now, do not put yourself in a position to say, when your children ask you, what did you do? When your grandchildren ask you, what did you do when you saw the people of Palestine struggling and going through what we call apartheid, what did you do? When they ask you, you should have an answer. Amanda? Away, too? Amanda. Thank you.
From the river to the sea. From the river to the sea. Palestine will be free. Palestine will be free. Free, free Palestine. Free, free Palestine. From the river to the sea. From the river to the sea. Palestine will be free. Palestine will be free.
Thank you to Luazin Tombela. We cannot, as South Africans, stand for an apartheid that's present. Our freedom is incomplete without the freedom of the Palestinians. Our freedom is incomplete without the freedom of the Palestinians. Next, we have Professor Noor, a Wits academic.
You just have to be like super loud.
Amandla. Now that's my closer. That was my shop steward voice. Can you hear me? Okay. Can I?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. The first thing I want to say is that it's really fantastic to have so many people protesting at Wits University. Only a few months ago, the administration of this university prevented students from protesting right where you're standing. So reclaiming this space as a space of protest, as a space where we declare our rights,
to object to oppression and exploitation in South Africa, in Palestine, and in the world is fundamentally important. I hope, and I see many, many students here, I hope that this moment of protest, of solidarity with the people of Palestine will also inject new energy into the movement that was started by the students at Wits and on other campuses. I thought that what I should say in the 2.5 minutes that I have left is to make some comments about the kind of solidarity that we should be organizing. And I want to say that this year, very importantly, we have been marking 73 years of the Nakba. 1948 was an important inflection moment of violence, of exploitation, of the removal of hundreds of thousands of Palestinian people from their homeland. There have been other inflection points, like 1967, like Operation Cast Lead about 10, 11 years ago, like the violence we are seeing today. But what we have to remember is that often when those things happen, when we have those inflection points, then we come out in our thousands to mark solidarity with the people of Palestine. But what we have to remember is that the Nakba is a continuous process. It's not only when we have those inflection moments of severe violence. In fact, even though 1948 marks the original moment of the Nakba, violence against Palestinian people preceded 1948. The removal of tens of thousands of Palestinians began in the early 20th century, in the early 1900s. It reached, before the Nakba, a crescendo in the 1930s when the Palestinian people rebelled for 3 or 4 years against the encroachment of Zionism. And of course, every day since 1948, the Nakba has continued. Now you all know this. The point I'm making is that the kind of solidarity that we have been organizing brilliantly over the last 2 weeks, we have joined millions of people across the world to show our solidarity with the people of Palestine. But it is critically important that when we leave here, when this inflection moment has passed, that we channel the kind of energy that we're seeing here, that the young people here, the students of Wits, of UJ, and other students, that we channel this energy into continuous and consistent solidarity with the people of Palestine. Why? Because the struggle of the people of Palestine continues every day. The violence against Palestinian people happens every day. Removals happen every day. They don't only happen at these moments of inflection, these moments of violence. And therefore, I'm hoping that when we leave here, that every one of us will channel the anger, the energy into consistent and continuous solidarity. We must support BDS. We must support the academic boycott. But what we also need to do every day is to organize ourselves to counter the Zionist narrative. Every major media in this country and internationally echo the Zionist narrative. Where is our counter narrative? We need to fight not only at these moments, but every day. I'm appealing to the students that we need young people, young minds to do the political work, to do the political education, to counter the Zionist narrative. Finally, and I know my 3.5 minutes are nearly over, right? Finally, an important element in the Palestinian struggle, an important moment that we are witnessing here is internationalism. We brought down apartheid because internationally, working class people, poor people across the world stood by us in our struggle. We therefore have to reinvigorate, we need to inject back into the politics in South Africa a genuine internationalism. We've lost this internationalism. We have retreated into narrow politics and sometimes xenophobia. What we need to do is in our organizations, in our communities, in our trade unions, in our civic organizations, or whatever political organization we belong to, is to inject international solidarity. And at the center of that international solidarity must be solidarity with the Palestinians. But that solidarity must extend, because the issues that connect Palestine to other struggles of violence by the state include the violence that we've seen and that has generated the Black Lives Matter movement, the struggle of the Rohingya people, the struggle of the students in South Africa, the kind of violence that Abahlali, Basim Jondolo is facing today. We need to connect all of these struggles in order to also support the struggle of the Palestinians. Amandla.
Amandla! Amandla! Fancy apartheid Israel, fancy! Down with the settler colonialists, down!
Thank you to Professor Noor. It is important to remember that the Nakba has not ended, and therefore our momentum cannot end. We are gathered here today, and after today, we shall mobilize and continue our fight for a free Palestine. Our next speaker is Tasneem Esop, a former student leader and PSC member.
Oh, it's really close.
Amandla! Amandla! All power to the people! Amandla! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! From the river to the sea! From the river to the sea! Palestine will be free! Palestine will be free! Amandla! Hey, cool. Thanks, comrades. Hard to follow the history, Professor. I'm a former everything, as was mentioned. So I'm just here to say a few things, and I'll mostly speak about the academic and cultural boycott of Israel. I stand here again. We've stood here many times before, and we come back to this because Palestine is our moral compass, and Palestine is where we show our international solidarity together with a range of other struggles that link back to our own struggles here at Wits, that link back to our own struggles here in South Africa. And I really just want to say that our solidarity needs to be principled, internationalist, and grounded in what we see around us in South Africa and our historical experiences, but also our present realities. So our struggle is a struggle that is ongoing in South Africa. And when we come and we raise our voices together for Palestine, let us also remember the struggles here back home that we are engaged in, the struggles here in Wits University, the movement, the student movement, the worker movement, the movements around the world, and that all of those struggles are intimately connected. The second thing I want to say is that many years ago here at Wits, there was a student-led academic and cultural boycott of Israel. And I want to say to the student leaders and to the students here, let us reaffirm our commitment here at Wits University to the academic and cultural boycott of Israel. So many times when we come out, when there are these moments, when Gaza is under attack, when Palestine in the occupied territories is under attack, we come out and we come to these protests. And often people will say, what can you do? And I think I just want to reaffirm again that what can be done is what Palestinians have requested people around the world to do, and that is to boycott Israel. And here at the university, we must continue the academic and cultural boycott of Israel. We must make sure that we have the moral and political responsibility as students, as workers of this university, to continue to take that stand and to continue to push forward the academic and cultural boycott of Israel. So I won't say much more.
I'll leave it there on that note. And it's really heartwarming to see the number of people that come out, and I hope that we can keep this momentum going on to future struggles and to continue our solidarity with Palestine. Amandla! Amandla! From the river to the sea! Palestine will be free! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Amandla!
Peru! Vidam! Vidam! Katika ya Palestine! Katika ya Palestine!
Peru! Vidam! Naftika ya Palestine! Peru! Vidam! Naftika ya Palestine!
Thank you to Tasneem Essop. It is so important to remember how interconnected the Palestinian struggle is with our own. When we advocate for a free Palestine, we are advocating for fees must fall. We are advocating for access to healthcare. We are advocating against all forms of oppression. Our next speaker is Noor Ahmed from the Amnesty, from the co-chair of the Wits Amnesty International.
Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! From the river to the sea! From the river to the sea! Palestine will be free! Palestine will be free!
Thank you so much to each and every single one of you for being here tonight. It's heartwarming to know. Louder? Yeah. It's heartwarming to know that so many individuals want to speak out in solidarity with the people of Palestine and stand with them. It has been 73 years since the start of the Nakba, the catastrophe which displaced hundreds of and thousands of Palestinians. 73 years of displacement. Okay, let's try. No. 73 years of displacement, of violence, of psychological and physical torture, and conditions which no human should ever be subjected to. We as individuals need to actively advocate against human rights violations and strongly condemn Israel's actions against the Palestinian people. We have to stand in solidarity with the people of Palestine. Israeli forces have continuously shown shocking disregard for the human rights of the Palestinians, leading to the loss of countless lives. Israel has been reported to target residential buildings, wiping out entire families in the process. Families have been buried in the rubble when the building they lived in collapsed in on them. People are not given any prior warning and have no time to escape. As of today, the injured in Gaza number over 1,000, with limited medical aid available to them due to the Israeli blockade, contributing towards even more loss of life. The death toll in Gaza stands at 205 people, of which 60 were innocent children, with the number expecting to rise if the airstrikes and attacks are not ceased. These are not just merely numbers, but are actual people whose lives were prematurely ended. These were people who were mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, sons and daughters. People with hopes and dreams and plans for the future, all of which was cut short. It is now time for the international community to finally speak out and take action against the blatant human rights violations happening against the Palestinian people. It is time that concrete action is taken. The time for passivity is over. It's time we all work together to safeguard the human rights of the Palestinians. Keep the conversation going. Let's keep posting about Palestine and attending events organized to show solidarity for the people of Palestine. We cannot rest until all Palestinian people are living with dignity, with the basic human rights that they deserve. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Amandla!
They can lie, Palestine will never die. They can kill, they can die. Yo. Hi, sorry, comrades. Yo.
Thank you to Noor. Often when we see the situation in Palestine, we see the stats and we forget that these are real people with lives which have just been cut short. Next is our next speaker is Umar Bacchus from the Wits Debating Union.
They can kill, they can lie. Palestine will never die. You can do your. Please keep it fairly close. What's that? What's on it? Amandla! Amandla!
Good evening, students. My name is Umar. I'm the chairperson of the Wits Debating Union. I'm only here to reaffirm the commitment and solidarity of our union with the Palestinian people. It is incredibly important for us to note that this struggle is not a new one. We will strongly condemn the crimes against humanity of the Israeli state against the Palestinian people. We hope and we pledge our support in any mechanism to support these people. We will continue to be friends and frequent collaborators of the Palestinian Solidarity Commission here at Wits. Note that our struggle as South Africans, as students of this university, are strongly entwined to the fate of the Palestinian people. Our freedom will never be complete without the freedom of the Palestinian people. Amandla! Owatu!
Who's next? Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free! Palestine will be free!
Thank you to Umar Bacchus. Next, we have the Wits SRC treasurer, Kanakana Mudzanani. Before calling on the speaker as the Wits PSC, we do appreciate the SRC stepping forward and joining us in this vigil. And we hope that your statement today embraces your support for the Wits PSC in its campaign for an academic boycott in solidarity with our Palestinian brothers and sisters, and that it reflects a turning point in the SRC and Wits PSC relations after the SRC's previous stance of being Zionist affiliated.
Free, free Palestine! I press it here. I press it at the
From the river to the sea. Palestine will be free. Palestine will be free.
Amandla! Amandla! Forward with the agenda to boycott apartheid Israel, forward! Forward with the agenda to divest apartheid Israel, forward! Forward with the efforts to sanction apartheid Israel, forward! Comrades, my name is Kanakana Mudzanani. We have gathered here today to remind ourselves as VET students that we will speak out in the face of any form of injustice that happens across the world. We have gathered today to make an assertion to this university that in the event that it chooses to be silenced, when there is a human rights violation in Palestine, us as students, we have the responsibility to ensure that this institution
is at the center of speaking out against any form of an injustice. We must equally make it clear, comrades. We must equally make it clear, comrades, because I see there is an element of excitement, that the position of the VET SRC is one which chooses to stand in solidarity with the people of Palestine. Comrades, we must make it clear as well that the SRC, the SRC is not anti-Semitic. The SRC is anti-Zionist. And any form of Zionist that seeks to prevail must be oppressed in all forms. And this must be said, taking into account, obviously, that amongst the Jewish community, there are Jewish members who share the plight and stand in solidarity with Palestinians. We also want to say to those who choose to abstain, comrades, from this imperative discussion, we wish to remind them of the words of the Archbishop Emeritus Desmond Tutu, that if you are neutral in situations of injustices, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. And that is why as the VET SRC, comrades, we are here today to say we choose to stand in solidarity with the people of Palestine, to say to the National Executive Committee of the African National Congress that a stance on its own against Israel is not enough, but more must be done. Apartheid Israel must not have a place in South Africa. Comrades,
Please.
Comrades, we must make it clear as well that I am here today to convey the message from the Student Representative Council. I am here to communicate the voice of the SRC, and my reflections will be shared in official pages of the SRC to say we continue to stand in solidarity with the people of Palestine. Those of you who wish to chant here, those of you who seek relevance by ignoring the fact that today we are not only standing in comrades, comrades, I don't know what you want from us, but we are making it clear. Here that the position of the SRC, comrades, is one which stands in solidarity with the people of Palestine. That must never be contradicted. When you choose, comrades, we wish to make it clear here today that the SRC will continue to support Palestinians in their plight. Let us mourn today and let us make it our own social responsibility that we will speak out in the presence of all forms of injustices, that we will speak out regardless of our ideological affiliations. And we also wish to make a plea to the Muslim Students Association that the PYA is your home. You must come back, fight your ideological battle so as to ensure that the plight is won. Amanza, and thank you.
Yo.
Palestine!
Ask PSC, bro.
How can you guys keep that so long?
Aibo.
Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! To the sea! Palestine will be free! Comrades, it's clear the SRC has said that Zionists must go. They must start at the SRC level as well. Down with Zionism, down! Down with Zionism, down!
All Zionists on this premises must leave. Our next speaker is Rais Nurbai, Student Forum Chair, Wits Coalition for Free Education, Physics Council, and the Socialist Youth Movement.
Viva Hamas! Viva! Viva! Viva Hamas! Viva! Viva! Viva Hamas! Viva! Viva!
Amandla! Our two! Forward with the fight for free Palestine! Forward! Forward with the fight for free quality decolonized education! Forward! Comrades, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., writing in a letter from a Birmingham jail, said that I am here because injustice is here. And injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Today we are here for that same reason, because we refuse to tolerate the injustice of apartheid, settler colonialism, and military occupation. As the Socialist Youth Movement, we affirm the right of Palestinians to freedom and self-determination, and we echo the call for the international isolation of Israel through boycotts, divestments, and sanctions. As Marxists, we understand that we cannot be socialists without being internationalists. That while we fight capitalism at home, we cannot neglect the fight against colonialism and imperialism, which Lenin called the highest form of capitalism. The revolution, if it is to be genuine, must penetrate borders. Comrades, the issue of Palestine is not one of religion, and let us affirm that today, and let us reaffirm that today. It is an issue of racism. I moral, I discipline, I moral, I discipline. Comrades, we must recognize that this is an issue of racism, land, and the dispossession of an indigenous people. As we demand the return of Palestinian occupied and colonized land from the river to the sea, we cannot turn a blind eye to injustices linked to land at home. We cannot separate the forced evictions and ethnic cleansing of Palestinians from the forced evictions of landless shack dwellers in Durban. We must echo the demand made by Abahlali Basan Jondolo, the shack dwellers movement, for housing and for land, for dignity, if we are truly to eradicate the legacy of apartheid. In a solidarity statement on the 12th of May, the comrades of Abahlali said that the blood of Palestinians is their blood. Abahlali faces death threats. Abahlali faces intimidation. Abahlali faces brutality from the police. So as the Palestinian Solidarity Movement, let us say today that the blood of Abahlali is our blood too. Because that is what solidarity means, and solidarity is what we need. As students, we must also recognize the link between accommodation and land, especially at a time when students are facing evictions from South Point residents by an exploitative corporation and a heartless corporation. From our comrades in South Point to shack dwellers in Durban to Palestinians in Sheikh Jarrah, our people are saying that they will not be moved, and we will never fail to stand behind them. Like Palestinian political prisoners, our comrades, Abahlali Deputy President Nkabeli Bonono, and Siniko Mia are currently being punished and detained for fighting back against the theft of their land. We know that apartheid Israel is maintained and held up by a series of laws meant to subjugate the Palestinian people and suppress the resistance of a colonized and occupied people. Under apartheid South Africa, one such law was the Intimidation Act, which has been ruled in part to be unconstitutional. As we remain firm that all Palestinian political prisoners must be free, we must also demand that the charges against all Abahlali activists, including all who are as well as all who are being charged under the Intimidation Act, to be immediately dropped, and for comrades Bonono and Mia to be immediately and unconditionally released. The brutality that we as activists endure is not separated from the crimes of apartheid Israel. Earlier this year, during the protests against student debt and financial exclusion, the bloodthirsty, brutal SAPS blasted us with water cannons. They chased us through a graveyard on Enoch Sontonga before arresting our comrades and shooting them with rubber-coated steel bullets. Those water cannons are made by an Israeli corporation and field tested on Palestinians. An Israeli corporation whose parent company sold anti-riot vehicles to the apartheid South African state. We must recognize today that the state of Israel is not and has never been a friend of democracy, justice, and equality in this country. Comrades, lastly, when we say that an injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, we must recognize that this means any form of injustice. It means misogyny. It means patriarchy. It means queerphobia. So when Queer Pride Month comes around next month, let us maintain this rage and keep this energy. When Women's Month comes around and we intensify our fight against patriarchy, gender-based violence, and femicide, let us maintain this rage and keep this energy. And when the protests for free, quality, decolonized education for all takes flight once again, and we promise that they will, then let us mobilize this rage and take it to the streets. Amanda! Immediately.
Sorry, Sharon.
Oh, is this Sharon? All right. Thank you to Rais. We cannot advocate for a Palestinian freedom if we don't consider the blood of Abahlali, if we don't consider students facing financial exclusion and eviction. Our next speaker is Alan Kalski from the South African Jews for a Free Palestine.
Comrades, I won't repeat what other speakers have said, but the South African Jews for a Free Palestine confirms and emphasizes our support for those sentiments, particularly against the latest upsurge of violence against the Palestinian people. Now, we know that the boycott campaign to sever academic and cultural links with Israel has been a stop-start affair in South Africa over the last 15 years. And we want to appeal that all campuses come together to create a unified declaration and demand that can be taken up at all institutions of higher education in our country. We need a better organized campaign because the Zionist forces that operate through funders, we know the kind of influence they have on university councils and senates. We are up against a highly organized, well-resourced enemy. And I use that word advisedly because many Jewish people like ourselves are very much against the Zionist movement, and that extends to its infancy. Now, how do we then convert this demand into a reality? One of the key weapons used is to say that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. That is a complete and utter lie. And we stand before you today to say that the Jewish tradition in its best form is universalistic, is for human rights and for justice. And that can only be for all people, not for any particular group. Israel is an aberration of Jewish history in the sense that it is now a new ghetto for Jewish people and a self-imposed ghetto. Before, in past centuries, Jews, as you know, were forced into ghettos by Christian Europe. And that resulted ultimately in the Nazi genocide of 6 million Jews in Europe. That the Palestinian people now become victims of Christian Europe is a gross distortion of history. And this is something that Europe must come to terms with. Instead of supporting the Zionist entity, it should be insisting on a human rights regime. So I leave you with this word again. Anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism, and we mustn't be cowed by that slander. Amandla!
Thank you, Alan. It is so important that we reject the misuse of Judaism, a peaceful religion, as an excuse for Zionism. Our next speaker is Ferron Pedro from Saftu. Please welcome her.
Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! From the river to the sea! From the river to the sea! Palestine will be free! Palestine will be free!
Shout.
Okay.
Like deep shout.
Okay.
Amandla! Amandla! Freedom to Palestine! Freedom! Freedom!
Comrades, I come to you today on behalf of the South African Federation of Trade Unions, SAFTU, with its 24 affiliates, to tell you that we stand in unequivocal solidarity with the Palestinian people that are being slaughtered by the Zionist Israeli regime. We come today to say to you that trade unions and organized labor, students like you all over the world, and communities, street committees, civics, have brought down an apartheid regime before. Comrades, I come to you today to tell you that we can bring down an apartheid regime again. I heard many comrades here talking about boycotting Woolworths, boycotting other products. I want to tell you that one of our affiliates, Kiwusa, the General Industries Workers Union of South Africa, has given me the mandate today to tell you that their Shop Stewards Council and their Congress have unequivocally supported the boycott of Clover. The workers in Clover stand with you, and we must escalate our struggle. We must escalate our struggle and go to Clover headquarters in Roodepoort, occupy Clover headquarters in Roodepoort until they insist on the divestment
of the Israeli group CBC. We will not have Israeli investments. We will not support Israeli products. We must boycott Clover, and we must insist that they divest and insist on the divestment of that Israeli group. Comrades, I come to you today to tell you that the workers in Saftu have bled and sweated for the freedom of our people here. And we will not stop, we will not tire, we will not relent until the people of Palestine are free. The freedom of Palestine is the freedom of all of us. Amandla, comrades.
Thank you to Pharaoh. Today we stand with our candles. We stand with our flames. But tomorrow our fire will rage. Tomorrow our boycotts will cause the Israeli government to feel it. Our next speaker is Roshan Dadu from the BDS Coalition. Please welcome her.
If you hold it really close. The press. Yeah. And then just.
Amandla! Awetu! Amandla! Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Thank you, comrades. Well, after everything everyone else has said, all the comrades that have been on the stage, I think it's an amazing rally. And actually from here, you can see just how many people there are. Wow. And I don't want to repeat what others have said. I think it's really fantastic to hear from the last speaker, from the Safti speaker, conveying the message that the Gewusa workers are supporting a boycott of Clover where their workers work, because they know that if an Israeli company buys into Clover, which it has done, it's going to mean job losses for them. Things that happen in Israel affect us here. And when Israel does trade as if it was a normal country with us, it causes us problems. It causes us more unemployment, and it causes us to have to stand in solidarity with the Palestinian people even more so, because it's one struggle. And I want to say that summing up what everyone else has said, what Comrade Allen said, what other speakers have said, this struggle of Palestinians is not complicated. The Zionist narrative tries to make out, as Comrade Allen was saying, that if we criticize Israel, if we criticize political Zionist states, we are anti-Semitic. And as Allen has said, that's a load of rubbish. But there are many other ways in which they try to make this struggle complicated. And I want to say to you, if our struggle against apartheid was not complicated in this way, we could call out apartheid South Africa. In the international community did. They called South Africa an apartheid state. Why doesn't our government call Israel an apartheid state? Because it hasn't done so far. And we have to keep up the pressure on them, because they have to be leading this fight. They have to be leading this fight internationally and in the UN and in the AU and in international fora, because it's a shame for us to have a government with ministers who were part of our liberation movement, who are too scared, who feel it's too complicated to call out Israel as an apartheid state. And in that regard, I think we have every right, if there are Zionists sitting in bodies of this student union, to call them out too, because if they are supporting an apartheid state, why are they sitting on SRCs in a post-apartheid South Africa? Doesn't seem complicated to me. And if they are offering trips around to Israel and all sorts of nice things and t-shirts, well, that's not complicated either, because we stand against corruption and we're not going to be bribed by apartheid state actors in our country into taking positions that we don't support, that aren't principled and that aren't just. So that leads me to my last point, which is resistance. We resisted in South Africa. We didn't just win because of international solidarity.
That solidarity, those sanctions isolating South Africa, was to support our struggle here. It was to support our resistance. We had a mass movement, we had trade unions, and we had an armed struggle. And I think if we can see that that was important in our struggle, to struggle in every way possible, wherever we were, taking up the arms that we needed to, whatever those might be, then I think we can only say we support the Palestinians' right to resist, to exist, to resist so they can return. And I think we have to make that clear, because that's another way in which people try to make things complicated. But it isn't. Actually, they have a right in international law. But more than that, we have to assert their right as people who are oppressed by a settler colonial state, an apartheid state, as has been shown, not only by UN bodies, but by an Israeli human rights organization even, as well as a huge international human rights watch. If all those people can see that this is apartheid, then our government has to be pressured. And I think we can pressure them, because even now their statements are changing, if you look at them. Even now we've had victories. We've got the Chief Justice, the whole Chief Justice, to apologize for going on an Israeli newspaper webinar with the Chief Rabbi, billed as the two chiefs, so it's clearly there's the Chief Justice, and talking nonsense about supporting Israel and praying for Israel and cursing people who did not do so. He's been told to apologize. So I think our struggle can win. We can win these victories. We can push our government. We can push our SRCs. We can push our universities to boycott, to make sure that they don't have sneaking in somewhere or another products or services or relationships with Israeli academic institutions. And comrades, I think if we could win here, as was said before, we can certainly stand firmly and solidly with the Palestinian people. So support Wits PSC, support the organizations on campus, and join the BDS coalition through Wits PSC. Viva, and thank you, Wits PSC. I think it's a fantastic rally. Thanks.
Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Viva the BDS coalition! Viva! Viva the Wits PSC! Viva! Amanda! I'm going to request one of the comrades to lead us in song. Comrades there, I think you are doing well. Please lead us in song. Oh,
Amanda, comrades, mine is to remind you that we are supporting a very militant and decisive struggle led by an armed wing, Hamas. And as students and young people, can we all please raise our flags? And as militants say, nobody wanna see us together. Oh, nobody wanna see us together. Oh, nobody wanna see us at school. See us at school. Nobody, mama, no, 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 no. Oh, nobody wanna see us in Gaza. I wanna see us in Gaza. Oh, nobody wanna see us in Gaza. Manta! Free Palestine, free! 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 Thank you very much, comrades. We are here in solidarity with the struggle of the Palestinians who have shown the whole world that no matter how much an apartheid government can build walls, can engineer machines, can engineer drones, and the biggest and strongest missiles, but with unity, stones, and rockets and militancy, we can fight any strong apartheid government that is oppressing the people all over the world. So let us take that in cognizance, comrades, that we are supporting a struggle that is very militant. And in support of a militant struggle here in South Africa, bearing in mind that we are still having fresh wounds from an apartheid government that was largely supported by Zionists, and that is largely economically funded by Zionists to this day. Let us take decisive action, comrades, and not only go to the embassy, but go to all those who are sympathizers of Israel. Go to all those who are having businesses with Israel. Go to all those who are having passports to Israel. Go to all those who have decided to realize Israel instead of realizing Palestine as government. We must show them that the spirit that is in Gaza is also here in the campuses. The stones that they are throwing in Gaza are also here in Braamfontein. The stones that they are throwing in Gaza are also there in Pretoria. So when we go, each and every one of us should arm ourselves with a stone and make sure that we are in solidarity with the brothers and sisters of Gaza with militant and decisive action. Amanda! Aweto! Amanda! Black power! No sharing! Black power! No sharing! Our souls! Our own! Our souls! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! From the river to the sea! 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 Palestine will be free! Palestine will be free! Manta!
Our next speaker is Amara Gada from Politics and International Affairs at MSA Union.
Amanda! It's so ironic to me that we say power to the people and we stand at a vigil for Palestine and we give the platform to the Wits SRC who sold out the people of Palestine, because these are the same people, the same comrades who stand here and claim to care about Palestine. The same comrades they are the ones who paired up with the South African Union of Jewish Students, a self-proclaimed Zionist institute, just by the way, not just because they're just Jewish students. There's nothing, there's nothing untoward about working with Jewish students. We've repeated this a million times. Anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism. But tell me why do we accept this behavior from the SRC to stand here at a vigil where Palestinians have been killed, where we read the news every single day and we cry for the lives that have been lost, and we swear and we shout and we call on government, do something. But the people here that apparently represent us, they don't represent me. Exactly. Kick Saudis out, remove your relationship with Saudis. And I'm going to say it, it's the Wits PYA. It's not just random SRC members that are faceless. They sold Palestine out. So don't stand here and pretend like you care about justice. Real justice is justice, no matter how unpopular it makes you, no matter who is trying to fund you. The same problems we have internationally. We want the whole world to boycott Israel. We want America to stop funding Israel's wars. But we stand here in a university that's so comfortable with Israel, so comfortable with Zionism. We are hypocrites if we accept that. And I urge everyone here to stop being hypocrites. Stop allowing these people platforms. I also want to say that a vigil, I know, is not meant to be that charged. It's meant to be a time of reflection. So whether you are religious, whether you aren't, whatever it is, please just take a moment to think, consider, maybe pray for the people of Palestine who have literally been suffering for longer than we exist. Thank you.
Come on now! Come on now!
Our next speaker will be Rashad Dadu from the Wits PSC.
Comrade Rashad, you've been called.
It's not coming. And I called, what do you want? They sing the ending of the hymn.
He's apparently supposed to tell me.
Supposed to tell me? Oh.
Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! From the river to the sea! From the river to the sea! Palestine will be free! Palestine will be free! From the river to the sea! From the river to the sea! Palestine will be free! Palestine will be free! Takbir! Allah! Takbir! Allah! Takbir! Allah!
Is it the end?
Well, comrades, as Amara has said, we need to use this time for reflection as well. So please, can we all close our eyes and reflect, particularly on the loss of lives, of innocent lives, all across Palestine, who continue to face the brutality of the apartheid regime, the settler colonialists, who continuously brutalize elderly, children, brothers, sisters, entire families who are wiped out by apartheid Israel. So please use this time of reflection before we close this session tonight.
Our next speaker is Shari Maluleke from Activate Wits.
President. I was really close to it. Yeah.
Free, free Palestine!
Super close.
With the rise of hate crimes against the LGBTQ community and the war crimes against Palestine, it shows we need to fight harder for justice now more than ever. The Activate Committee of 2021 and the queer community stands with Palestine. Intersectional and internationalist politics matter now more than ever. And down with white supremacy, down with Zionism. Free Palestine now and forever. Down with racism, down with classism, down with queerphobia, down with Islamophobia, down with white supremacy, down with Zionism. Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine!
Thanks again.
Free, free Palestine!
Free,
Thanks again.
Free, free Palestine!
free, free
I'll leave this.
Amana!
I'm just going to do the moment of silence.
It seems like it goes off and then we can do a thing.
Please let us all stand for a moment of silence for all the lives lost in the Palestinian struggle. Tonight, we are thinking of the Palestinian struggle. We are thinking of the innocent Palestinian children who have lost their lives so quickly in such brutal ways and have had their childhoods ripped from them. We are thinking of our brothers and sisters in Gaza and the pain they have endured from the violence, their agony of having their homes taken away, and the heartbreak in having their place of worship ransacked. We are thinking of the Zionist state's vaccine apartheid and how all access to healthcare has been blocked from the Palestinians. Let the flames of our candles reflect the flames which burn within us and be representative of the strength of the Palestinian spirit that will not be extinguished until Palestine is free. The Palestinians have not given up in the struggle, and therefore we cannot give up. Let us stand for our moment of silence.
That's exactly what you did when you get there and you lied. I need to calm
Senzenina, Senzenina, Senzenina. Senzenina, Senzenina,
What have we done? 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 What have we
Nkosi sikelela,
Nkosi sikelela, i-Afrika.
maluphakanyiswe, Nkosi sipha amandla,
ukunqoba
silwene pha nosathane, noma sekunzima,
emhlabeni asihlukunyezwa,
Nkosi sipha amandla,
ukunqoba
Sime moya munye. Ankosi sigalela. Sigalela. Malupanyise. Ibanganda. Sime moya munye. Andoma segonzimba.
Free Palestine, free! Free Palestine, free! Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Palestine will be free! Palestine will be free! Palestine will be free! Palestine will be free! From the river to the sea! From the river to the sea! Free Palestine! 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 From the river to the sea! From the river to the sea! Palestine will be free! Palestine will be free! Down with apartheid Israel, down! Down! Down with apartheid Israel, down! Down! Forward with the free Palestine, forward! Forward!
On behalf of the kids, I'd firstly like to thank our incredible speakers who pulled through despite the difficulties so last minute. I'd also like to thank each and every one of you for making the time to attend this video. We will not remain silent, and we will not give up the fight for the free Palestine. In the same way the Palestinians will not give up. Therefore, our solidarity cannot be passive. We must actively boycott and call for sanctions and reject the colonial Zionist ideology. Forward to the struggle for a free Palestine.
Boycott, Woolworth, boycott! Boycott! Boycott, this camp, boycott! Boycott! Boycott, Woolworth, boycott! Mata!